Hello beautiful souls, if you are watching this is part 2 of my ayahuasca ceremony experience review. If you haven't already watched part 1, I recommend going back, watching that before you watch this one. This is just carrying on the ceremonies, just to break it up a little bit because it's a lot of information, let's be honest. So because the first night was still pretty intense for me, I actually asked the doctors if I could have less ayahuasca the second night, and they did. And I remember sitting there and everyone is giving us our ayahuasca drinks, and intuitively my body was like, don't drink it all. And I had a really hard time getting it all down. The first night was easy, like I was like, oh, it tasted gross, but I actually have a pretty good tolerance for that sort of stuff. I just sip it, I can't scull, but like I can pretty much eat it. But for some reason, the second night, I just knew that would be intense. So my intention the second night was, I got my intention for the first night feeling lots of love and bliss, but I felt like for the first night, I just wanted to get out of my body. It was way too overwhelming for my nervous system. And I was like, okay, cool. So how can I invite that back in, but also admit it out into the world? So I compacted in my body this love and bliss and total oneness, and be able to create magic and I guess penetrate the world with it. So yeah, very naive. I remember I was sitting there, it kicked in very, very soon the first night, and everyone in the room just had a really intense experience the second night. It was really funny how all of our journeys were really linked together. So I'm sitting there and I think maybe I could just start breathing and like giving love and receiving love. And I literally thought that I would be doing this the whole ceremony, like, give love, receive love. I'm just a love being, yeah. And I can just bypass the whole experience because it's intense. And I was like, yeah, I'll just have a fun night. And then all of a sudden, Mother Aya was like, no, you're having a very, very big journey today. All of a sudden, I'm in another dimension. And the first night, I could open my eyes and come back to the space and see the shamans and see the doctors and see the people, and then go back in and then close my eyes and colors and things, and I would be in the other space. The second night, I didn't get a chance to be back into the reality. It was so intense. I would open my eyes and I was still in this space. The space that I was in is one of those parts where I have a really, really, really hard time articulating what it was or where I was. Very colorful. It felt like the only representation I have is like a carnival. Very colorful, very loud, lots of geometrical shapes, lots of creatures, lots of souls. But there's just like all this beautiful like weaving and falling in on itself, and just, it's like I was like this non-physical being, but just like a soul. But instead of like walking, I was sort of like floating and evolving into like other dimensions. And yeah, it was pretty intense. So basically, as I arrived there, I was greeted by these two creatures, or I don't know what they were. Let's just call them creatures, to be honest. They were very colorful. They weren't human, but they weren't animals. I don't know, maybe aliens. But yeah, they seemed well, and like they seemed like they had good intentions, because at the same time, even in the first ceremony, the demons and the negative energy do try and come in, but you just give it love and they sort of just like, they pop away. The second night, these creatures came in and they're like, come. And I was like, come where? And they were like, come with us. And I was like, oh, can I go back? If I follow you, am I allowed to go back to Earth? Like, is this available for me? And they'll basically like, I don't know, I can't tell you that. Like, basically what they were asking me to do was to die. So they were asking me to die, and I wasn't sure if I could go back. So we were in this middle space for a long time of me wanting to go and then maybe edging back and being really scared. Sort of like if you would the bungee jump, which I did yesterday, it was really funny, because I'm going to share with you a little bit in a moment. I died, but as we're doing the bungee jump, I'm like, I've already died before, so this isn't that bad. But yeah, basically we were in this middle space for a little bit, going in, going back. I was a bit like, do I go, do I not? Thinking about my life, thinking about the things that I wish I created, about the things that I, like, do you know when, like, you probably don't, but when you're dying, you think about all the things that are really important to you, and it's not furniture or your achievements or the money or material items and the cars you had. It's just the connections and the love you felt. And I was looking back on my life and just seeing how much I hadn't been living, and that made me sad in a sense, but I wasn't sad. It was just like an acknowledgement of like, yeah, okay, yeah, I can see how I wasn't living. I can see how I was like bypassing the human experience. I could see how I just so desperately wanted to know the reason of life, and I was choosing to bypass that experience to find it, but in the process I lost myself in a way. So we were in that space for quite some time, probably a few hours to be honest. It was quite intense, probably an hour. The whole thing goes for about 8. And when I decided to surrender, and I thought I've surrendered before, but this was a surrender like nothing I've ever experienced before. I had to fully let go of my physical body. I had to say goodbye to everything I had ever known, everything that I've ever built or created, any connections that I've had in the physical plane. I was dying, and it wasn't even an ego death, because I will share with you, like, when I died, the minute I decided that I was happy to die, happy to leave this earth and go into the other side and just be a spirit again and be a soul again, when I decided that, the male shaman was holding my head. And I looked up, I remember looking up, and even at the same time, I still had trouble like seeing things around me. Like I would open my eyes and I could probably see like things here if they were right in front of my eyes. But other than that, I couldn't really see around me. But I remember him holding my head, and he was standing above me holding my head, and I was sort of like on my knees, and I looked up and I could just see 20 shadows around me and the shaman here. And he was blowing things on me, and they were putting like scent things up my nose, like water. Again, this is all like their traditional stuff. I don't really know the words of it, but they were all doing this ceremony for me. And I realized at that moment is that they were doing this ceremony for my death. And he would say things like, let go, you're safe, it's okay, goodbye, and like sort of like helping me on that journey to completely die. And as soon as I died, I was in this dimension where, again, I have a really hard time to articulate what it was. At the time, I thought it was separate. I thought that the dimension was like in the universe or separate than us. Now, what I believe is that I was just my spirit. And I was flying with some people that have passed, my grandparents. I was like journeying through this space of like limitlessness. It was just love. Like I have a really hard time with articulating what it felt like, but I had felt so okay to die. I had felt so safe and protected to just completely let go of my body. And I couldn't feel my physical body anymore. I wasn't here, I was there. And I was okay with never coming back, because I knew my soul would be reincarnated again, but I was just really at peace with everything. And now that I died, I have a completely different experience to death. And I feel like in my work, I'm no longer afraid to launch a product or do anything outside of my comfort zone, because I had already died. And there are so many people that hold themselves back from doing the things that they really want out of a fear of they might die. And this isn't like a logical fear or a conscious fear, it's a subconscious fear. Maybe they learned that when they were little, their dad launched a business, and then they went really bankrupt, and then they had no food, and then they were, their survival was being threatened. So there's so many beliefs that we have, but because I died, I just saw what was really important, and that's just simply love. love and living life. And I have a different relationship with psychedelics or drugs now, and I would always do them to try and see what else was out there in terms of like mushrooms. I would always like see like what else is out there, what other dimensions can I tap into. But as a human, we have been chosen. This is the gift. This simulation and matrix that we're in right now, this is the gift. Our souls will never die. They will keep being reincarnated depending on what our soul's purpose and mission is. But at the end of the day, like, we're the lucky ones to be here, to be on earth, to be feeling, to be loving, to be experiencing, to be going up and down, to having stories and creating and birthing ideas into this world and just living. Like, all these things that we crave, they are not separate to us. There's a reason that we crave and desire them, because they are a part of us and that they will help us on our journey. But I feel like a lot of us are just taking this way too seriously, of terms of what is my life reason and why am I here and what am I supposed to be doing? And I know I was taking that way too seriously. So it just allowed me to come back into my body and be like, stop looking outside of yourself for the answers. It's already here, and you can live your life like a normal human being. What is normal? But like, you can live your life as you desire, and you can be spiritual. And I used to think that like spirituality and the mind and the body were separate. Like mind and body, yes, because they're physically here, but I always thought that spirituality was like separate, but it's not. And the dimension that I carried into was something that already lives within me. And we have just been programmed lie upon lie upon lie of what is reality. And reality is whatever you make it. So I guess after that journey, I'm really getting clear on like, what is the reality that I want? I also kept hearing this song called Underground Kings by Drake. And it was a quote where he says, "You ain't got to die to get to heaven." And then as I woke up the next day, this verse kept coming in as, create your heaven on earth, create your heaven on earth. What does your heaven on earth look like? And I think sometimes we always put it in the future, like when I'm rich one day, when I have this, when I, like they're putting everything in the future, but it's here right now. And we can decide to have it right now. So all the answers that I was sort of looking for became available to me by just understanding that life is so precious, to stop avoiding, to stop numbing, to stop bypassing, and just be here in the now. And a lot of people talk about being present, but that is the magic. Like all the shit that we're worrying about doesn't even matter. What matters is if you were to die today, what would be your number one regret? Focus on that. That is what you should be focusing on, not all this fluff and airy, fairy shit that we sort of focus on the outside, like making 100K and having 3 clients and having like whatever it is, like on this outside, having the best clothes, whatever it is. Doesn't even matter. If you died and you regretted not doing those things, like fair enough if that's really important to you, but if you were to die in this moment, what would you regret not experiencing, not doing in your life? What have you been holding yourself back from experiencing and creating? And also at the same time, a lot of my healing happened underneath the layers. So I feel like doing ayahuasca for me was really powerful because I was able to receive everything I wanted, so I could go back living, so I could come back to my reality and do whatever I wanted, to stop trying to find this thing outside of myself, because it's not. And yeah, there's a lot more that happened in the ceremony too. I'm going to leave that here because a lot of it is my own experiences as well, so I want to keep a little bit to myself. But the second ceremony, yeah, dying, not having a physical body anymore, and just being in complete oneness and complete love, like that is something that I've never felt before. And I just, yeah, it was just super beautiful. Like I don't really have many words, but it was a glimpse into, if that's what dying is like bring it on. It was so pleasurable. And at the same time, as you're sort of going through this, the shamans are really helping you on your journey. There's like lots of whispering, clicking, humming, singing. Everyone else's journey, people are laughing and vomiting, and like it, if I was to be in that, like a fly on the wall in that room, like I think even the sounds would have been healing. Like there's always people connecting with you. Also on the second ceremony, I don't have one recollection of vomiting. I wasn't in my physical body at all. I remember touching, when I came back to my physical body, I remember touching my bucket and it was full. And I was like, what the hell? I don't even remember vomiting once. So yeah, I just completely wasn't here. I was completely in another space. And yeah, it was really, really cool. The day after was probably the hardest for me. I remember the day after the second ceremony, I was sitting in our sharing circle that we had with the group, and it's sort of like when the master and the psychologist or the psychotherapist comes in and we just share our experiences and they help us maybe decipher a few things and to make sure that we're integrating the medicine of the teachings. And I remember sitting there and literally thinking to myself, I've gone insane, I've lost my mind. Like I literally felt psychotic, and I could understand why people go psychotic. And then I'm like, are they really psychotic, or did they just see the world truthfully? Are now we psychotic? And I was sitting there just having like this weird sensation, and I would do like glimpses like, and it would like change back to where I was last night and then back to reality. And someone was sharing their story, and he said, can you go psychotic after having ayahuasca? And I was like, I've never related to something so much in my life. And she said only if you've got psychosis in your family. But yeah, it was a really hard thing, because I was like, how can I go back to reality? I was like, I don't know how I could get on a plane and leave Peru and go back to my normal life. I don't even know how I can even civilize in this way of so much heaviness and darkness and pain and suffering that people create for themselves. So like, how do I adapt back into this reality? And basically that happened for a few days, or the whole day, and we had to make a decision if we wanted to do the third ceremony. And at the time, and also still now, I was like, if I was to do a second ceremony, or a third ceremony, sorry, if I was to do a third ceremony, I think I would lose my mind. I think I would literally crumble into this love ball oneness. I would just be this love bubble living in Peru. I was so happy just to tap off my world, tap off my work, not talk to anyone for the rest of my life, and just stay in Peru. But the messages that I kept getting on the first and second night was, you're meant to experience this, but don't take it too far, because people do take it too far and then they stay in Peru for the rest of their life. But my role in this work, in this world, is to take it back to reality and to be the bridge and to help people bridge over. They were basically saying, like, you're not here to be in the love bubble and stay in this space, because in this space you can't help or herd the people over to the new dimension. And I think about, like, I guess all the, like, the hippies, if you want to call them that, and they sort of like do their own thing and they stay in their own little realm. But I really see that my work is meant to be global and shared across the world, and that they were showing me that too. And they said, yeah, you have a voice that is meant to be heard and shared, and you are the people helping us get to where we need to be, but we're not there yet. And I honestly felt like if I was to do another ceremony, again, I didn't have any questions for Mother Aya anymore. She answered everything in that death portal, in a logical and a non-logical sense. Like, it was just a beautiful closing. I didn't have anything that I needed from her, or anything I wanted to ask from her, anything else I wanted to experience. I literally experienced the most incredible things, and I felt like to do a last ceremony, it would just be torture. The only reason I would do it was out of FOMO. I was like, I just felt like I was being left out, and that's my ego at the end of the day, wasn't my soul. And I feel really good still to this day that I didn't do the last ceremony. I listened to my body, I listened to my intuition. And it was really beautiful, because I woke up the day after the last ceremony that happened. And how the retreat works, some people do 2 ceremonies and some people do 3. So we actually bought 3, but Matt did 3 and I did 2. And everyone else was in the Molucca having their ceremony, and I went to bed really early that night, around like 8 o'clock. And basically, I woke up the next morning. I still don't know what it was. I'm going to put some photos here. I woke up the next morning with these like geometrical, limey circles, shapes in my window. So the condensation had actually come from inside, not outside. And there was no stencil, there was no sticky residue left over on the windows. Some of them overlapped as well. There was no logical reason as to why these things were here. However, they appeared, and I woke up and intuitively I was like, dream catchers. Like I had really incredible dreams because the medicine sort of lasts in your body for like 2 weeks as well post that. But I had really beautiful dreams, and I could see that was Mother Aya's way of protecting me, because I was away from the group while they were all on a journey as well. And I was sort of on a journey as well, but I wasn't on the ayahuasca that night. And I showed the master and the psychotherapist, and they were like, whoa. It wasn't like anything that anyone went and carved out. Like, it was just so beyond this world. And it really led me to remind myself that the non-physical or the spirituality already lives within, and to open my eyes and be aware of these magical things that are happening and taking place in this physical realm. Again, I have no reason as to why or how that is possible. It's not, but it was just so beautiful how it happened. Yeah, it was just, how can you? Anyways, I tried to share this as shortly and compactly as possible. I will have another video sharing about like the logistical side and preparing for an ayahuasca ceremony if you wanted to do it for yourself and you have any questions around that. But I am just so excited to create and live and just be in my body and just live out a really beautiful human experience, because we only get one life, only one. It's no coincidence why we like wake up in another life when we get born again and everything our soul has ever experienced is wiped clean. We can access that in hypnosis, which I do with my clients, but it's just so beautiful. Things are really falling into place for me now, and I feel so in my purpose and in my pleasure and in my body. And at any moment I just want to cry, because I look around at my life and I'm just so grateful. Like, I want to cry right now. The people that are in my life, everything is like happening really beautifully, and I'm just so grateful for being here. I'm grateful that my body and my soul chose to come back to the plane, to the human experience, because it's really beautiful. We're really lucky to be here, and I just feel so strongly to help women understand and see that in themselves as well, because we're all so magical. It's not outside of ourselves. It's the thing that we're yearning for is us. It's us. So yeah, I'm gonna leave that here. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you love me talking about this, please like and subscribe, and make sure you put your notifications on so you get notified when I upload new videos every week. But I just love you all so much, and do something for yourself that your soul is craving, not your ego, your soul is craving today. So I'm gonna leave that here. If you want to share with me, maybe you had an ayahuasca experience similar, or you want to chat about it, please let me know. Send me a message on Instagram. My handle is @CarlyJade. I would be so happy to connect with you. And without further ado, I will see you in the next video. Bye.